This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want, like that dream house or ride, is a great feeling. That's why the State Farm Personal Price Plan can help you save when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the Personal Price Plan. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
The McDonald's snack wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch snack wrap. Spicy snack wrap. You broke the internet for a snack. Snack wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Unfiltered discussions. Unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome and happy Tuesday. After tonight's show, I'm running to the airport at full speed. So I might be a little stressed tonight, but here's what you're going to learn on the program this evening. You would think people want their leaders to be bold, dominant, and stereotypically masculine. But when asked to build their ideal leader from scratch, most people go for something else entirely. Competence, warmth, balance. In about 10 minutes' time, we will unpack the surprising psychology behind your leadership choices to understand why you pick the leaders you do. You might want to stick around before you vote in the next election, which will be whenever it is. After that, top scientists just dropped a UFO bombshell. And no, it's not aliens, but it's a call for serious investigations, from pilot sightings to a national database, reporting apps. But we're not going to talk to a UFOologist. UFOlogist? We're going to bring on an astrophysicist to find out why UAPs, UFOs, are finally getting real government attention. That halfway through the hour. Those are some of the things you'll learn on tonight's program. There'll be more, and for now, let's jump in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
And in lawsuits where brain surgeons sue for millions of dollars over snowmobile crashes and lose those lawsuits over text messages news. My goodness, these news topics are very specific. Tony Five, foreign correspondent in London, England, is here to discuss.
David, we are cornering the absolute market on these stories. Hello, everyone. Hello, world. Hello, David. Yes, a high-flying neurosurgeon. So that's somebody that works on the neuros.
And flies in those above-atmosphere planes, like
Correct.
the military stealth technology. Is that what you're talking about, high-flying?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
That's what I'm talking about, my friend. Yeah, is that. I don't know whether you've got it over there, but when you buy, sometimes when you buy high-performance cars in the UK, the companies give these potential drivers these experiences. So I remember when I bought an Audi, you could go to Germany from the factory, pick it up and drive it home, and they'll take you around a test track or something like that. Now, if you go one higher level, you buy a McLaren, and these cars start at like hundreds of thousands of dollars. McLaren offered this chap a £23,000. So what's that, like $4,000-5,000 or something like that? I don't know what the conversion is.
Yeah, it's like a $30,000 luxury vacation.
Yep. So they pay all expenses paid trip in a nice area, basically somewhere where they've got lots of snow, lots of ice, to drive these cars on the snow and ice and teach them like how they skied and everything like that. Okay, that's normal. But as part of one of these extracurricular activities, he got to ride what I call a snowmobile, but they guys call a skidoo.
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 No, you say skidoo.
It's a do for skiing. You ski with the do. It's like an electronic, it's a snowmobile. It's a skidoo.
I call it a skidoo.
No, it's not skidding, it's skiing.
Or whatever, right?
And you're doing.
I mean, this is wonderful content for the listener, but I don't think they care. Anyway, this chap, he rode it around. He is, by his own explanation, his own admission, he is an adrenaline junkie, okay?
Okay, yeah.
He asked the guy, so the guys gave him, they give you the whole sort of safety talk. He got on a bike, rode it around for a while. He got on the skidoo, rode it around for a while, and then basically asked one of the guys to turn up the speed, okay? He then managed to clamp it around a tree. He was knocked unconscious for half an hour. He's got sort of impaired brain function and hurt his hand and stuff like that. Then he then got back and he tried to sue McLaren Automotive for £14 million, my friend.
So he tries to sell this car manufacturer for taking him snowmobiling. The irony is he's a spinal surgeon. He's seen accidents, like I assume, that are motorcycle-based, that are skidoo-based.
Oh, God, yeah. Yeah, he's like a foremost surgeon.
Now I'm thinking, is it skidoo or skidoo?
It's skidoo.
Skidoo. Anyway, he's seen all these things. What you're missing here, though, Tony, is right after the accident, I guess he felt a little bit bad and he realized he was at fault, allegedly.
Yeah, I'm not missing it, mate. When he woke up and he got back, he emailed McLaren and said, "Sorry, guys, I damaged your thing. I owe you a skidoo or a snowmobile."
Yeah, he said he wanted more speed.
Yeah.
He basically texted the company being like, what did he say? No worries, happens. And if I owe you guys a snowmobile or any other costs, please let me know. And then he writes this to the company that paid for this snowmobile tour. Yep. He said, it was my error and my responsibility.
Exactly. But he also told the judge of the thing he didn't admit to guilt. Fantastic. English law at its finest. Basically, the judge thought he was an absolute lunatic and threw out the case.
I love that you like sue. You act like a jerk. You injure yourself.
You admit it on text message.
Allegedly, because this guy's got deep pockets. We have to use the word allegedly because someone taught me if you're in the media and you say allegedly, you can't get sued. So allegedly, he's a jerk. Allegedly, he hurt himself. If you do that and then you want it, like let's say you go parachuting.
Yeah, so if I go parachuting allegedly and I fall out of the plane allegedly and I land on somebody allegedly.
And you hurt them allegedly.
Yeah.
And then you say, that was my fault. I accept responsibility. And then later you go to sue them because you say it's their responsibility.
Allegedly. It's insane. I mean, does that ever happen? Do you ever think you can get away with things, even though you're completely in the wrong? Do you ever do that? Do you ever just like in your daily life, do you ever just walk around and go, I can get away with that? Like, I think I could get, even though you know deep down it's just wrong.
Yeah, of course. I get obtrusive thoughts. Like when you're driving and you're just like, oh, if I move my hand slightly, I will cause an accident. I would never do that, but I can do it, you know?
But that's more of an intrusive thought, like dangerous thought. I'm talking like you're driving home and you're allegedly doing 130 miles an hour on the street. But if you got caught, you'd say, no, I wasn't. That's what I meant. Like you fly past the police car at 130 miles an hour. You're definitely doing 130 miles an hour. The policeman pulls you up and he says, oh, sir, you're doing 130 miles an hour. And I shout at them, allegedly, and, you know, not get thrown into jail and lose my license.
I did allegedly get a speeding ticket once and the cop asked me how fast I was going.
Yes, that's the question.
I responded by saying, what are you looking for me to say right now? And he's like, I'm looking for you to tell the truth. Yeah. And I said, I don't know.
Okay, well that's like the same thing, right? Because you obviously knew how fast you were going, give or take 5 miles an hour, right?
I mean, I wasn't glancing at the speedometer the whole time. There were periods where I wasn't sure. You know, you glance at it, you go back to the street, you glance at it. I don't know.
Okay, did you know you were going faster than the speed limit? Allegedly.
I plead the fifth. Yeah, I allegedly don't. I don't know.
What does pleading the fifth mean? Does that mean you're just an idiot?
That means
What's the fourth? What's the sixth?
I plead the 5th, the 3rd, the 28th, and the 92nd. But back to this case, I feel like if you're ever sue curious, maybe don't admit that things were your fault to the people you're going to eventually sue. That's just my non-lawyer legal advice, allegedly.
David, I believe you got the same Groupon I did about litigation, right? So, no, I believe that's one of the first tenets of Groupon Law 101. Do not admit to the plaintiff, and by plaintiff, I mean the people that you're suing, that you're guilty.
Should we do some quick ongoing coverage of the Coldplay kiss cam scandal of that CEO who was busted kissing his girlfriend, a fairy woman he was cheating on his wife with at the Coldplay concert?
I don't think it was a fairy, David. I think that's a bit derogative of you.
What kind of boat are we taking today?
No.
There was a recent Stroke Association post where they basically made fun of the kiss by saying nothing destroys families quicker than strokes. And then they made some joke. Coldplay has entered the chat.
Yeah.
They posted this on social media and now everyone's upset at them.
Absolutely. A complete tone-deaf marketing scheme, trying to compare a guy having an affair and being caught on a Coldplay Jumbotron with a major stroke that kills people or destroys families in real life. I mean, they both destroy people. And I'm not just talking about a stroke, I'm talking about Coldplay.
I feel bad talking about this. I feel like this one needs to die. It's just not dying.
Again, David, a little bit insensitive to you, David, talking about the Stroke Association.
No, I'm talking about the Coldplay scandal.
Ah.
Tony, we are out of time. You'll be back later in the show.
Allegedly, David, allegedly.
Think the ideal leader is a bold alpha male? Well, think again. Warmth, competence, and balance might matter more to you than dominance. I promise. There's research that says so. Details in a few minutes.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Sierra, you'll always find apparel, footwear, and gear for 20 to 60% less than department and specialty store prices. But right now, it's clearance time, so you can save even more on everything you need to get active and outside. Visit your local Sierra store today.
Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
You'd think most people would prefer their leaders to be strong, stereotypically alpha male, but when it comes down to it, we seem to prefer gender-neutral traits in our leaders: competence, kindness, integrity over dominance. There's a new academic paper out that challenges long-held assumptions about what makes someone the ideal leader to us. I'm here with someone who worked on this. Her name is Dr. Andrea Vial. She's an assistant professor of psychology at NYU Abu Dhabi. Andrea, welcome to the show.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me.
So how do you test what kind of leadership traits someone, maybe someone like me, would be drawn to in like an academic context?
Well, there's different ways that people have done this in the past. We were a little creative. We used a method that essentially asks people to think about their leaders as if they were grocery shopping and asks them to purchase the types of personality attributes or traits that they would find most important for someone to be their ideal leader. And if you've ever gone grocery shopping, I don't know about you, but sometimes I just can't afford everything that I would want to get, right? And so through the trade-offs that people make and how they spend their money when buying these traits, we can glean what their true feelings are for the traits that are crucial, essential, quintessential to leadership, and the ones that maybe would be nice, but when you're pressed for money, maybe not essential.
Were the traits of different prices? Like, how do you price a trait, or were they all kind of a fixed price, and in the end of the day, you only got to choose some?
Good question. So every time our participants did this task, they had a fixed set of attributes, say 10 at a time. And we always gave them a budget that didn't allow them to purchase all of these traits at their maximum amounts. So then maybe you could spend $1 on a trait you really liked, or you could spend $2. The point is that you couldn't indiscriminately just fill your cart with everything that you would like. You had to make trade-offs.
What inspired this novel method, and what would it reveal about what kind of leaders we like that maybe traditional surveys or other investigations in the past might have missed?
Well, this type of method, it's known as a necessities and luxuries method. It's been used before in other studies looking at how people, sort of what people's social preferences are in different contexts. We've used it before in a study on leadership in 2018 with another collaborator. And it is a bit different from, say, Likert scale. So, asking people from 1 to 10, how much would you like this trait, right? And part of what we were thinking is when you ask people in that way, there's nothing preventing them from saying, I want everything, right? We think of this as a free buffet where people might just not even think twice about putting something on their plate. Maybe they don't really like it too much, but it's there, right? And so this method has the advantage of forcing people to make trade-offs, and then we can learn from those trade-offs.
Well, let's get to the meat of this. The stereotype of the typical, I'm putting that in quotes, leader is heavily masculine, but it seems like people's ideal leader turned out to be more balanced in practice. What kind of traits did people prefer?
What we see is that for sure they want someone who's super competent. This was no surprise, right? You don't want an incompetent person running the show. And that came through very clearly in people's...
Is that a surprise?
Well, I mean,
in theory.
This did come through in our studies, and it's a finding that comes up in the literature pretty consistently. But then we also looked at assertiveness, which, being independent, ambitious, go-getter, decisive, like these sorts of traits. Communality, being warmth, caring, kind to others, also having integrity, right? So there's a morality component to communality that we also examined. And we also looked at negative traits. And here we asked people how much they would pay not to have these traits in their leaders. So here we were looking at what we called negative agency. So things like being tyrannical, cynical, stubborn, things that people tend not to want in their leaders. And we compare those to low agency traits, which are things that typically we don't want in leaders either, right? Like being weak. And what we see is that even though, as I said earlier, right, this competence premium is really critical, when it comes to assertiveness or dominance versus communality, people seem to really want those to be evenly balanced.
Rejecting this notion of arrogance or dominance, or people preferring not those qualities, do you think the era of the alpha male leader, like the alpha male CEO that we might have seen in yesteryear, is coming to an end? Or are people just saying what sounds good in a survey and actually preferring different things in practice?
Well, there's an assumption maybe in that question that lay people's preferences transfer into the reality of who gets selected into leadership roles or voted in, or
You're right to point that out.
Right, like that might not be a linear direction. So it's possible that people's preferences just don't necessarily align with then through the processes of leadership emergence and selection, what actually ends up being represented among leaders.
Are you surprised that the leaders that end up getting selected through these processes don't match what people actually want?
I don't know if I'm surprised. It was a positive surprise to see that people do prefer leaders to be more communal. That is great. I think that's great, and that's something, right? But then, yeah, we maybe shouldn't be very surprised that people's preferences, that there's a lag, right, between reality and people's aspirations and values for a better world.
Sure. And how might we close this gap? Like, how might we select leaders that better reflect what we actually want?
Well, that is a tricky question.
That's the $1 million question right there, isn't it?
That is the $1 million question. It's very difficult. We've been doing this type of work for many, many years, and the number of, say, women in leadership positions is not increasing as fast as we would think, based on, for example, people's preferences. So I'm not sure that I have a clear answer for you, unfortunately. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. If someone listening is a woman who's aspiring to leadership, what would your findings suggest they do and how they might present themselves?
I think they might want to emphasize how they might match people's ideals for leaders, rather than say how similar or not they might be to the typical leader, right? So instead of asking, who is typically a top leader in this organization or a top manager, they might ask, who is the ideal person to run this organization? And perhaps they will find that those notions match better with the way that people think of women, and that might give them a bit of an advantage.
On a lighter note, if we were to design the ideal boss or leader from the traits in your study, what kind of leader would we end up with?
We would end up with someone who's very competent, dominant in equal measure as kind and caring, perhaps depending on the situation, and someone who is definitely not arrogant, cynical, stubborn. In our studies, that emerged as the recipe for the ideal leader.
Andrea, thanks for sharing your research with me, and thanks for the chat. I appreciate your time.
You too. Thank you so much.
Dr. Andrea Vial is an assistant professor of psychology at NYU Abu Dhabi. Coming up next, a chief scientist wants us to take UFOs and UAPs seriously. No little green men, but real sightings, real data, maybe even a federal task force. Someone within the government wants us to take aliens, well, I guess just unknown flying objects, and their sightings seriously. An astrophysicist about what's going on in our skies right after the break.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Greenlight. Get this. Adults with financial literacy skills have 82% more wealth than those who don't. From swimming lessons to piano classes, us parents invest in so many things to enrich our kids' lives. But are we investing in their future financial success? With Greenlight, you can teach your kids financial literacy skills like earning, saving, and investing. And this investment costs less than that after-school treat. Start prioritizing their financial education and future today with a risk-free trial at greenlight.com/Spotify. Greenlight.com/Spotify.
Keep listening to The Last Show with David Cooper, because the alien invasion can wait. The Last Show with David Cooper.
We often have experts, some quote-unquote experts on this show to discuss UAPs, UFOs, and aliens. But today we are joined by astrophysicist, someone who looks at the stars and stuff for a living, or teaches it. He's also the co-author of Daydreaming in the Solar System, and he works at York University. His name is Dr. Jesse Rogerson, and we are going to discuss a new Canadian UFO report. Wow. Jesse, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How's that for an introduction? At the commercial break,
Yeah.
we were baffled.
That's how you grab people.
That's how you grab people. I was doing research for this interview, believe it or not, and I stumbled across the Sky Canada project.
Yes.
And it's something to do with UFOs. I like calling them UFOs. What's with this UAP thing?
Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. So UFOs, unidentified flying objects, is intimately connected with the X-Files, right? I mean, like you say UFO, you think Roswell. You say UFO, you think little green men. That's like the common connection. And understandably, it's been part of our popular culture since the 50s, right? When all that conspiracy theory stuff started popping up. So the idea of that a thing in the sky that you see that you don't understand is an alien is all wrapped up in the idea of the word or the term UFO. Now, if you wanted to actually investigate the things in the sky with real effort, with actual data, with real a real goal of trying to figure out what it is, you kind of want to try and disconnect yourself from the popular culture stuff.
It's a rebranding.
Yeah. You know how to say it. Yeah, the media, right? It's a rebranding.
I get it. It's an attempt to take what's been discredited. I mean, I've talked about it often on the show, and we don't need to get into it, but 1940s, 50s, and 60s U.S. government programs that have been declassified as using UFOs as cover-ups to hide stealth bomber technology. A bunch of people spotted a new fighter jet that the U.S. government was keeping secret at the time. They send a bunch of people to their house to convince them it was UFOs, and then that person's labeled as a kook. We get it. It's sort of a 180 pivot. Well, let's talk about that pivot. Where's the Canadian government at in terms of UAP investigations and reports?
Well, I mean, at the moment, we don't really do anything with any real organization. So reports happen all the time. They come from everywhere. They come a lot from pilots, a lot from police officers, but then you also have the public. There's soldiers. There's a wide range coming from a variety, from rural areas, but also coming from because they have a better view of the sky. But then also coming from downtown, they're coming from everywhere. There's 1,000 per year, but they basically just go to the police. They say, "Hey, I saw this weird thing in the sky. I don't know what to do." Or if they're a pilot, they actually have a pilot actually has a way of reporting things that they see. So there's a few different methods, but none of it is collected and used for any real purpose unless there's a credible threat. So like the police or the military will investigate something if they think it's like
Russia.
Yeah, I was going to say a foreign adversary, but yes, if they think it's Russia, we have a lot of northern borders that sort of overlook Russia. So they'll look into it if they think that's what it is. But for the most part, they say, okay, it's just some random thing in the sky, see you later. So we have no real organizational effort to do anything. This report says that came out from the chief science advisor. She and her team said, hey, there's about 1,000 of them a year. They're credible, meaning they're coming from professionals with experience looking at the sky, like pilots, and we should look into them with more organization. So the idea is, who looks into them? How do you look into them? With what tools do you look into them with? That's what the report was trying to identify.
Money also. With what money do you look into them with?
I know, like this is a report that's going to the Prime Minister, currently Carney, right? And who knows what he's going to do with this report? It's the chief science advisor saying, "Hey, I'm advising you, Prime Minister. We should probably look into this." But I'm sure Carney will have other things on his agenda. I hope he takes it seriously. As a scientist, I think that we should be investigating. As an astronomer, I look at things in the sky all the time. We should be investigating things that we see in the sky, even if they seem like weird, crazy things. And so having a little bit of government backing to that would be really good.
Just like a central database, a couple reports every year. Probably they'll just say, we don't know. It was weather balloons, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, most of the time, like 99% of the time, we can end up identifying it, right? And then there's 1% of the time that we just can't identify it. And that's it. That's the end of the report. We don't know what it is. But if you build up enough of those, perhaps you will uncover some truth, right? That's the point of having a database, long-term studies, constant reporting. Maybe you could figure out more details.
Now, what I was alluding to earlier, this idea that there's now declassified U.S. government reports where associating aliens or UFO sightings with individuals was a way to discredit them, often to cover up Air Force technology. Do you think this is so culturally ingrained that, like, you're in academic circles, you're an astrophysicist, you're not chasing, green-eyed, blue-headed, whatever, round, what are they called? The rounds, the grays? I forget what these aliens are. The classic alien, like from X-Files. When someone in your community starts talking about aliens, is this kind of like immediate, discredited, they're treated like a fool kind of vibes still there? Is it still ingrained in academia?
Well, academia has pivoted a lot over the last 20 years because we now have the tools to actually investigate real aliens. So what I mean by that is, we've started investigating exoplanets over the last 25-ish, 30 years, planets that orbit other stars. And it's long been the dream of those I'm not an exoplanet scientist, but those exoplanet scientists, basically what they've been going for the last 30 years is, how do we know if that planet has life on it? And that includes two things, like unsentient life, so bacteria or like little crawly things or whatever. How do we identify that? And or if there's sentient life there, how do we identify that? And that would be through radio signals, right? So there are groups with real academic integrity that are investigating both types. There's astrobiologists using James Webb Space Telescope to look at the atmospheres of exoplanets.
They're sniffing for gas on those planets by looking at light.
That's right.
They're sniffing the light, I guess, is the best way to say it. To detect whether the light from the planet has a signature, or the light from the planet's star passing through the planet's atmosphere has some signature of life.
Exactly. I guess it is a signature of life, technically.
Yeah, when bacteria breathes in air and then passes gas. Anyway, so there's that class, and then the other class is listening for lifelike radio signals.
Yeah, there's SETI, right? The Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which was started by Frank Drake using radio telescopes around the world. And the idea there is, like, if you're an intelligent race like we are, and you're broadcasting radio signals, we should be able to, or might be able to, pick those up. So far, we haven't found any of those. So we're doing it, and academics talk about it at conferences, and what's the best way to do this, and what would be a signal that we would believe, and all of those things.
But what about UAPs and UFOs?
yeah, when it comes to UAPs and or UFOs, however you describe them, I haven't met a single academic who credibly or says that they are aliens flying around. We all think, or at least all the people I've spoken to, we're like, oh yeah, it's probably weather balloons. It's probably like a Chinese drone that zipped in and zipped out real quick, or maybe it was just a flare on the lens or a data artifact. Like there's so many random things that happen in lenses. Cameras are crazy. So, and it's hard to look when you look at the videos of those UAPs or UFOs, however you say it, you can't really tell much from them. They're just like little zippy lights and you're like, oh, well, that's not really data. And the Americans are actually trying to take that on. They're saying the Americans did a similar thing to what the chief science advisor did, put out this report saying, hey, we need to investigate these more thoroughly. But they also commented on the fact that it's not just about investigating them. We need to like when an astronomer, like when my group of people say we want to investigate exoplanets, we sit down for 10 years and we build a telescope that's designed to look at exoplanets. No such instrument exists for UFOs, UAPs, right? So you need to like develop the infrastructure to actually observe those things.
Check out Dr. Jesse Rogerson's book, Daydreaming in the Solar System. He's an astrophysicist at York University. Jesse, always a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me.
After the break, loving too much ain't a good thing. It's called love bombing, and we'll tell you how to spot the signs of it. I'm David Cooper. This is The Last Show.
On WhatsApp, no one can see or hear your personal messages. Whether it's a voice call, message, or sending a password. To WhatsApp, it's all just this. So whether you're sharing the streaming password in the family chat or trading those late-night voice messages that could basically become a podcast, your personal messages stay between you, your friends, and your family. No one else. Not even us. WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone.
When your therapist won't take your calls anymore, there's always The Last Show with David Cooper.
Ever been swept off your feet? Gifts, endless love letters, sharing quote-unquote everything with you. That special someone does that, and then things crash hard later. Let's unpack love bombing. What is it? Why does it feel so good? And what are some subtle signs it's happening to you before the fallout hits? I'm joined by licensed therapist who runs Laurel Therapy Collective, serving California and Florida, Laurel Roberts-Meese. Laurel, welcome to the show.
Hey.
This topic gets thrown around a lot on social media by, it is my pejorative, not yours, by like armchair therapists who just categorize any good deed as love bombing, any slightly selfish deed as narcissism. I think we overuse the term, but I think it's also a very real thing that people can find themselves swept up in.
I agree.
So what exactly, from your vantage point, is love bombing? Is it just too much attention all at once, or is there more sinister, weird stuff going on there?
It's not necessarily sinister. I mean, there are a lot of reasons why love bombing happens, right? When your attachment system gets activated, meaning, if you're secure, anxious, or avoidant, and you find yourself kind of feeling like, oh my gosh, here's this person, and you're flooded with all of those feel-good chemicals in your brain. I mean, it's stronger than like any drug that man could make, right? That people's behavior gets a little wacky, right? So sometimes it's a result of all those feel-good chemicals.
But it can be a tool from someone who seeks to shift the way they behave over time to more abusive or more narcissistic or starting to take more than they give. I think that's where the red flags are really something we need to worry about.
Absolutely. If you're feeling in your gut, which trust your gut, if you're feeling in your gut like this is going too fast, I'm being put on a pedestal, this person is kind of holding me up to be this perfect ideal that I will not be able to hold up, for a long period of time, that is probably the biggest indicator that you're getting love bombed. It's your gut.
Some people think it's nice. Like when I met my girlfriend, my marriage was falling apart. I was unmedicated. I was pretty unwell. It was 12 years ago. And I really jumped all into my next relationship in maybe like unhealthy ways. And in hindsight, I think we described this period as me love bombing. I went to therapy. I got medicated. I stopped behaving that way. But I think a part of my girlfriend like romanticizes it. And I think for some people, like it sounds like kind of a good thing because you feel so wanted.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, why is it a red flag? For me, it was a red flag because I was pretty unwell while it was going on. Why is it a red flag for others?
It's a sign that there may be some expectations down the line sometimes. Now, if it's truly just coming from a good place and you have no expectation of reciprocity and it's just you're trying to express you're feeling great. But if there's that back of your mind, like, oh, well, down the line, I'm going to expect their undivided attention, or I'm going to expect that they prioritize me above family and friends, all of that, right? That's when it gets problematic, when there's any kind of guilt or possessiveness to it. If it's truly a free expression of feeling and it's done with respect and it feels somewhat reciprocal, I think that that's a beautiful thing. And that's humans connecting. That's humans loving deeply and intensely.
Yeah, I know a couple like this. They've been together 25 years. They have 3 kids. I think they do it like 5 times a week, and they're so in love, always buying each other's gifts. Honestly, it's annoying, but it's kind of nice to watch, and they do it to each other.
Yeah.
Let's talk the areas where this can go wrong, maybe lead to more kind of destructive behaviors.
Yeah. Well, the worst possible outcome here and the worst pattern that is possible when you're seeing this love bombing is something that ultimately leads to domestic violence, right? That this is, these behaviors, these kind of grandiose gestures. Some people might associate them with narcissism. I agree with you. I think that we overuse the term narcissism, but this kind of grandiose expression of you as like the ultimate perfect partner, and they've never met someone as perfect and incredible as you, that's kind of a lot to live up to. And if you are also feeling like they want you all to themselves, that you are made to feel guilty for wanting any space, that it's not okay to set a boundary with like, hey, you know what? Tuesday night has always been girls' night, and that's not going to change. And if that's a problem for them, that is a big red flag. Anytime you start to feel isolated or guilty.
The most worrisome sign of it for me is like after one partner, the person who does the love bombing does a major transgression like cheating or yelling or any kind of bad or horrible behavior, they then engage in the love bombing as part of the forgiveness feedback loop. And that's kind of an ugly use as well.
Yeah, and that can get more and more violent. I'm not going to go into any detail on that, but the cycle of abuse is that there's this kind of honeymoon period where there is love bombing and extravagant gifts and, oh my goodness, you're so perfect. And then there's tension that builds during and after that period. And then there's an event. It could be an act of violence. It could be cheating. It could be, some big rupture. And then there's the remorse that leads back into the love bombing. And that is the domestic violence cycle that we see. And it can be on a smaller scale, kind of more emotional tread in that pattern, or it can be actual, major acts of violence.
Or verbal abuse as well.
Yeah. Financial abuse. Financial abuse is one of I think it is the most common type of abuse in relationships.
Great. And by great, I mean that's awful. I lament that that's true. Question, when you first start dating someone, that honeymoon phase, it's very easy to get those rose-colored glasses where everything you see about the partner is great. Are there subtle signs that you might be entering an unhealthy love bombing cycle that you might want people to be aware of?
Subtle signs. Well, when you meet someone you're really excited about, there is this instinct to share everything with them. You want to kind of merge with them. You want to just keep those chemicals going, right? And there's no substitute for time in the building of a healthy, strong relationship. There is no like behavior or disclosure, or like you just kind of have to let time do its thing. Now, that doesn't mean that you're wrong, that your feelings are incorrect about this person being wonderful, but you still have to pace yourself. You don't want to trauma dump. You don't want to overshare early on before they feel comfortable or they know how you like to be responded to. So slow it down, draw it out, savor this for as long as you can, right? Because for most of us, unlike that couple that's been married 25 years, that, they're just the annoying, like, just
No, they're
so
great.
in love.
They're great.
They're great. But most of us, the honeymoon period lasts 6 to 24 months. Draw it out as long as you can. You don't need to get into heavier emotional content right away.
No, boundaries are great for a reason also. There's a reason that like normal healthy relationships have boundaries, and that as you get closer to someone, those boundaries may start to drop.
Yeah.
If everything feels urgent and explosive and like it needs to happen this minute or it'll never happen at all, to me that's a sign of an unhealthy relationship beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, very rarely are things in a relationship actually urgent. Right? It's like, does someone need to go to the hospital because they're injured? Or like, does someone need to get to the airport for a flight? Other than that, like, you have time. Enjoy it.
Speaking of going to the airport for a flight, I've got one after the show today. You've made me anxious. Any like positive signs of love bombing? Any suggestions for people who are, it's kind of a weird question, but like if you're just entering a relationship and you want to make big gestures, to do it in a healthy way.
Yeah. You can make big gestures. Really pay attention to how they respond. And if they are cool with it, great. If they set a boundary, you got to respect it. And likewise, if you set a boundary and it's respected, that's a green flag.
Well, Laurel, I appreciate you coming on the show. Always so nice to chat with you.
Yeah, likewise.
Laurel Roberts-Meese is a licensed therapist who runs Laurel Therapy Collective in California and Florida. Coming up next, I'm sure you'd like to give your past self advice. Well, we can't do that, but we can take advice from our past selves. Call the show, record some advice for your future, and we'll follow up with you in the future. It's advice for your tomorrow self from yesterday, today. Up next. Confusing, I know.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Pro Savings Days doorbuster deals are on at Lowe's. My Lowe's Pro Rewards members save an additional $120 on a GE 21.9 cubic foot top freezer refrigerator. Plus, members save $70 on a Bosch hammer drill, now only $99. Not a Pro Rewards member? Join for free today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 7/23 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. See Lowes.com/terms for details. Subject to change.
Advice for your tomorrow self from yesterday, or maybe from today for tomorrow. If you're confused, you're not alone. This is what happens on the last show with David Cooper and Tony Five.
Listener feedback on this particular segment on the radio
is there's no listeners.
Yeah.
That's the feedback we have from the listeners. We're not there.
No, people write us and they're confused. They don't understand it. It's too complicated. They don't like our voices. They don't know why their radio won't turn off. The dial is broken. I get emails from Nigerian princes about sending them money.
Yep.
We get a lot of feedback about advice from your yesterday self for tomorrow, today.
I mean, David, when it comes to this, quantum physics and quantum entanglement, I think they're relatively straightforward things. I mean, I find it difficult to spell, but apart from that, they're really easy.
They certainly are. It's so simple. Tony and I record advice yesterday to be played today, and then we hear our advice from our yesterday's selves today from tomorrow. For tomorrow. It's for tomorrow from yesterday.
Correct.
It's so easy to understand. I don't know why.
I don't understand why people are just not getting it and they're petitioning outside with placards, David.
Tips from yesterday's future uncle tomorrow afternoon is another alternate title, probably.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I find it. Play the music, baby.
All right, here's Tony's advice from yesterday for today, which was tomorrow from yesterday's perspective.
Good day, dear boy. Good day, listeners. My advice for today, for tomorrow, that I'm going to take today in case I don't take it tomorrow, which will be yesterday when you play it tomorrow, is to try not to let this sort of negativity around me affect me. I think we're sometimes predisposed to kind of being a victim of our own environment, but I'm trying to actively not let things that may go wrong or things that I may disagree with around me to sort of affect me. And I think even just saying this is helping. So, yeah, that's my advice. Anyway, over to you, young David Cooper.
Whoa, just got real, Tony.
I know, right? So I was at a wedding this weekend, and I wasn't particularly looking forward to a wedding for various reasons, but the bride was an hour and a half late.
What? Like everyone was standing there at the ceremony for an hour and a half?
So me and my poor 83-year-old mum, who we had gone all the way to South London in heavy traffic. So I'd left at 5 o'clock in the morning to get down to my mum's for 7:30. We left at 8:30. We got to the wedding reception, the church, for about 10:30 with the wedding invite saying everybody has to be seated by 11 and doors will be closed so no one can come in late. Now, she then turned up. I'm being generous at an hour and a half. She turned up at 12:45, technically meaning she should have been locked out of the church, right?
What? And was it unclear whether she'd show at all?
Well, there was obviously, now because of phones and stuff, they were texting, they were saying it's going to take time and so on. Apparently the makeup person was taking too long. Do you want to know the worst? I mean, there's two things that were very funny and very bad. She's walking distance of the church, like
Whoa.
walking distance, but she came in a Rolls Royce. I get that. People have this, this whole thing about coming in the church.
They hate their money. They want to spend it. I get it.
Yep, they hate their money. They want to spend it on an overpriced car to drive them somewhere, not even an Uber.
1 block.
Yeah, when he could walk here. And the second thing is, being me, I started talking to the wedding band who are playing on the church. There's like a harpist. Is that the right name? It doesn't sound like it's right, but it is. You've got guitarist, you've got pianist. Is a harpist called a harpist?
You can't say pianist on the radio, Tony.
I know, David. We're going to be banned for something like that.
Piano player. Yeah, it's harpist.
It is harpist. So there's a harpist, there's a violinist, and there's a bassist. Which, again, I've been called a bassist many times before, but I love all colours and creeds, David.
That's racist. Now,
right.
Okay, well, so there's a lot of negativity swirling around. People are whispering, people are gossiping.
Well, people get angry, and they start mumbling and whatever, and you can hear this dissent get slowly worse. Not only that, people, now it's a group of people, I'm not going to describe the demographic, but suffice to say, at about 45 minutes, people just started going to takeaway shops round the area, bringing it back into the church and just start munching away because it was such a heavy storm outside. So all of a sudden, this church is full of like chicken and chips and fish and chips and sandwiches. The band, who I guess are paid by the hour because artists, I guess they are.
Yeah, I assume musicians are paid.
Right, are looking at their time thinking, well, this is eating into our time. So when they did come, they did their songs and didn't bother going to the reception. So at this champagne reception that was held, again, the church to the reception area was an hour away. So everything was delayed and there was traffic. It was just horrific, mate. And then obviously that negativity was surrounded, like it's meant to be a joyous occasion, right? I already didn't want to go. So I went into it feeling, I don't want to do it. And I was tired and, and then it just turned into this absolute shambles.
Well, and so your advice is just breathe through it and go home and try to just let it fall off your shoulder?
Yeah, try and see the levity in it because it was very funny. And it
sounds funny.
I tried to make as many people laugh as possible and just not take it so seriously. But it's like kind of disrespectful and rude to be an hour and a half late for your own. And you've got all these people coming from all places all over the world. I think there was people that had flown over from Jamaica, people flown over from America for it. And it was like really heavy rain. So it's not like they could stand outside and get fresh air. And obviously, this is a 200-year-old church. And if you're interested, this is where Charlie Chaplin went to church. Oh. So if you're really interested, it's called St. Luke's. Cool. In West Norwood. And it's actually where Charlie Chaplin went to church. And it's fascinating. And it's a beautiful church. But obviously, these things just keep the heat in. So it's so humid, everybody's sweating. So when the bride comes in, everybody, you look around and they're a lot like me, they're bald. So there's these big shiny heads everywhere. It's hilarious.
That's a lot of negativity. We got gossiping. We got a late bride. We got the aroma and visuals of people eating takeaway in a church. We got an annoyed band, and we've got an incredibly rude bride.
Yep.
Starting the rest of her life That does sound very negative.
But it was my cousin, and I do wish them a very happy marriage.
Of course. The worst wedding I ever went to, the aunt of the bride got drunk.
Wow.
She brought her own booze because there wasn't hard booze, so she brought like a flask. She punched the bride's mother in the face at the wedding.
Oh, were you there? Did you see it?
I was there. The groomsmen assembled to eject this belligerent woman, and it was a buffet, and one of the buffet items at the wedding was a tater tots.
I love tater tots.
They are tasty. And as the aunt or the bride's aunt, the bride's mother's sister gets ejected from the wedding, she's kind of squirming and fighting, and she grabs a fistful of tater tots and stuffs them into her face.
Yes! Right, is she single? Because she sounds like my kind of girl. I wanted her to grab a handful of tater tots.
And now introducing Tony's future ex-wife. All right, here's my advice for my tomorrow self from yesterday.
It's not going to beat mine, is it? It's fantastic.
Yeah, mine's just a little tip because I'm traveling after the show. I'm rushing to the airport.
Of course you are.
Hello, David. Your flight is tomorrow. Don't worry, everyone. You'll be doing the show. David and myself will be doing the show while I'm on vacation. But regardless, tomorrow is your flight from New York to Toronto. You're visiting your dad for his birthday, blah, blah, blah. Here's your advice from today, which is tomorrow, but today is yesterday. You packed the night before your flight instead of the hour before your flight, and it is extremely not stressful to do that. I don't know why you always stress yourself out by packing the morning of a flight to the minute when you're about to walk out the door and you're going to be late. Why do you do that to yourself? Just pack the night before. You did it tonight, which is tomorrow. Well, I guess it's yesterday for you. And very relaxing. I think your flight today is going to go easy peasy.
Great use of easy peasy. And fantastic. Good for you. That is quite good advice. I think planning in general, right? It does alleviate the stress.
It certainly does. I'm always a pack morning of person, and it's always such a stressful day. Today was easy. Like I did the show. We worked on the show. I'm heading to the airport, and it's just a non-stressful travel day. Who'd have thought?
Well, in all fairness, I mean, the fact that you did that does mean you get to the airport calmer. It doesn't make the show any better.
That's an exercise left to the listener. Tony Five, foreign correspondent in London, England. Tony, thank you for being here.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Safe travels.
Up next, ever dealt with someone who forgets things conveniently or compliments you like it's an insult? Well, you might be dealing with a passive-aggressive narcissist. After the break, we'll talk the sneaky tactics and the psychology behind these people and how to protect your sanity when dealing with one without becoming passive-aggressive yourself.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Close your eyes, exhale, feel your body relax, and let go of whatever you're carrying today.
Well, I'm letting go of the worry that I wouldn't get my new contacts in time for this class. I got them delivered free from 1-800-CONTACTS. Oh my gosh, they're so fast.
And breathe.
Oh, sorry. I almost couldn't breathe when I saw the discount they gave me on my first order. Oh, sorry. Namaste.
Visit 1-800-CONTACTS.com today to save on your first order.
1-800-CONTACTS.
Broadcasting from the intersection of chaos and more chaos. The Last Show with David Cooper.
The subtle and not so fun mind games of the passive-aggressive narcissist. Why they behave the way they do and how their actions can affect your mental health. And what can you actually do to protect yourself without losing your cool or your job? That is what we'll discuss with Dr. Daniel Waldeck, an assistant professor in psychology and researcher at Coventry University in the UK, who's done some research in this area. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Hello, David. Thank you for inviting me onto your show.
I hear a lot in pop psychology, people talking on social media, throwing around this label, this passive-aggressive narcissist label, but I rarely hear it defined. So what exactly is passive-aggressive narcissism? And how is it more different than, overt narcissism?
So I guess one thing to start with was, well, what do we mean by narcissism per se? Because we hear the terms, or commonly used, like you're a narcissist or this person's definitely a narcissist. So when we're talking about narcissism, generally when people score high on this, or they are high in this trait, they tend to be quite self-centered, tend to be wanting to be the center of attention, and needing admiration or status from other people, or wanting to climb high on a social ladder, for example. So you get these different types. So you got grandiose type, generally speaking. So grandiose types tend to be more overt, more viewing themselves as special or superior to other people, whereas vulnerable narcissists are a bit more focused on they're quite self-conscious, quite sensitive to any sort of sign of rejection. So those are broadly the two kind of domains that we're talking about with narcissism. But when we're talking about passive aggressive behavior, this can be used by both types. And so when we're talking about passive aggressive behavior, it's less overt, so it's less likely to be seen. So if you've got an overt bullying, for example, like hitting someone or swearing at them, or, it's generally viewed to be quite unsociable, not frowned upon in society, which have a vast variety of negative consequences. But passive aggressive is more hidden, more indirect, like ignoring other people, for example. So it's easier to deny. I'm not ignoring you. So it's a bit less visible. So yeah.
Now, passive-aggressive narcissists, do they often feel ostracized even when they're not?
So there's less direct research on passive-aggressive narcissists per se, but there is research suggesting that narcissism is associated with feeling ostracized. So whether that ostracism happens or not, so whether it's real or not, narcissists do tend to perceive it more than other people. So they do tend to be quite sensitive to those kinds of feelings.
Sure. Well, let's talk about some examples of this. Maybe like at work, you're expecting a coworker to get something done to help you and they forget to do it on purpose. They give you backhanded compliments, things that are actually mean when you think about them. These behaviors seem small, but do they have a long-term health impact on us if we are interfacing with someone engaging in this behavior?
Sure. I think that's spot on, really, David. So in terms of as a one-off, for some people, these sorts of behaviors can be quite irritating, at least. But if you notice it regularly, it can have a long-term impact. So even if we're stripping it to feeling ignored, there's several studies showing that if you're exposed to being ignored, being excluded, being ostracized, for example, in the workplace, that's associated with a whole range of different unfortunate negative consequences, like increased anxiety, increased depression, increased distress, higher levels of paranoia or poorer sleep. There's a whole host of negative impacts it can have on the person or the victim of that kind of behavior. And coupled with that, it is difficult to prove. So if you are in a work context, it's difficult to demonstrate to other people, I'm feeling I'm being ignored, but the other person can easily say, no, I'm not. Look, I've included them. I've CC'd them in the email. Or, I'm sorry, I just missed you off that invite to the party. It wasn't intentional. It's
plausible deniability.
Yeah, precisely.
Why do people exhibit these passive-aggressive behaviors? Like, what's the psychology? What would possess someone to behave this way towards me?
So one reason can be it's for narcissists in particular, there can be a threat to their ego. So if, for example, the individual has been ignored or they've taken some sort of slight, or someone's done something to offend them in some sort of way that affects their character, they are more likely to lash out to try and restore their self-esteem. So if we're thinking of narcissists as already being quite self-centered and viewing themselves as superior to others, any situation where they are viewed to others as being at fault for something, or they're humiliated in some way or ignored, that might mean that they are more likely to try and restore that self-esteem by lashing out against the other person. So that's one reason. Another reason can be as an attempt to try and gain superiority other people, trying to gain status within the group. So if they've been excluded by another member, they might try to denigrate or try to make the other person seem worse off compared to them, so that they are restoring that or inflating their position in that group.
Knock others down in an attempt to climb up yourself, I suppose would be the way to describe that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about techniques for dealing with someone in the workplace? There's this technique called gray rocking. I've heard of others using this. What is it? Does it actually work? Is there any science behind it?
So there is some science behind it. I mean, it is certainly an area that is needing more research, and that's something I'm hoping to get into in the future. But with grey rocking, so this is it's a way to try to starve the individual of fuel. So the fuel is your reaction to the behaviour, because if I strip it to feeling ignored, for example, a natural reaction can be irritation. And if you feel like you've received unfair treatment, it can be to, respond to that person, because it's how dare you treat me unfairly. So one technique is doing this grey rocking, where you literally become a rock. You don't give any ammunition back to the person. And because the research suggests that narcissists are more likely to respond aggressively when they feel criticised, the best thing isn't to fight fire with fire. Even if you're feeling, rightly so, a bit resentful, a bit angry perhaps at the way you've been treated, try not to fight fire with fire. One of the things to do is to just keep yourself as uninteresting as possible. Try and give brief responses. So, yeah.
It's very much the old technique dealing with the schoolyard bully, like don't give them what they want. Don't let them get a rise out of you.
Definitely. And I think it is just a case not to, just keep those interactions brief, but try also not to use a tone where it's clearly passive aggressive in nature in response. So, yeah.
Is it possible for a narcissist to change, or is managing your own reactions to them the only realistic strategy here?
Great question. There is some research to suggest that change is certainly possible. But I would say focus on yourself, what you can do, look after yourself, and how you manage your own reactions.
Well, Dr. Daniel Waldeck is an assistant professor in psychology and researcher at Coventry University. Check out his book he co-authored with Rachel Leggett, How to Make the Most of Your Psychology Degree. Daniel, thanks so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you, David. Pleasure.
Up next, have you wondered why you make risky choices when you're all stressed out? From impulse shopping, gambling, to dicey life decisions, when you're stressed, it's not just poor luck that you decide things badly, it's brain science. So after the break, new research that explains why stress rewires your decision-making and what you can do about it.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 40% off site-wide, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Broadcasting from the neutral zone, where every perspective gets diplomatic immunity. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
We've all made bad decisions when we've been stressed out. Rash decisions, risky decisions. Well, a new study reveals there's a deeper reason why stress makes us more likely to take risks. It turns out stress changes how we weigh losses and gains, pros and cons, sometimes pushing us towards choices we might normally avoid. Let's learn how that happens with someone who worked on this research. He's a psychological science and neuroscience researcher at the University of Arkansas. His name is Dr. Grant Shields. Grant, welcome in, my friend.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I love that you studied this because we've all seen a friend in duress make not so great decisions. Is observing something like this in your life or in your studies what got you so curious about the topic in the first place?
Yeah, I actually really got onto this line of research, how stress influences higher cognitive processes that contribute to poor decisions as a result of working at a group home where I saw these youth often make decisions that they really regretted later, like breaking their own property when they were stressed. So I really kind of wanted to help resolve that, like help with that dynamic at a broad level by figuring out why it happens. That can then lead to some clinical interventions later.
I think the classic example that we all saw growing up was the unregulated friend punching through a wall when they were upset, and then like they're going to have to pay for that. A silly example, but I think one that illustrates what's going on here. Loss aversion. Why does it have such a strong grip on our decision making, especially under stress?
Yeah, so we don't like to lose money, to lose property, to lose things that we find valuable. In fact, this bias is so strong that it actually contributes to poor investment decision making. Some of the reasons why, say, like algorithmic trading oftentimes outperforms human trading is because we hold on to losers too frequently. That's the typical pattern of decision making, and usually it's quite adaptive. Under conditions of stress, though, we lose this aversion to losses. We're okay with making decisions that maybe might harm us currently or in the long run. So that dynamic is altered.
Tell me more about the study. Like, what exactly goes on when we're stressed and we make a decision versus when we're level-headed and we make a decision?
Yeah. So this study was really an attempt to understand some of the mechanisms underlying the effects of stress on risky decision making. We've known for a long time, I've taught in classes for years, that people make riskier decisions under stress, especially when taking those risks is not advantageous, when it's just not a good idea. But understanding why that occurs has been difficult to determine, at least in prior studies. So in this study, we wanted to kind of really leverage behavioral economics literature and apply kind of the entire model that's used to kind of best understand risky decision making in that literature to pick apart some of these component processes and see how stress affects them. So yeah, what we found is that stress is doing a lot of things to a lot of processes, and that kind of differs as a function of male and female participants, and kind of that high degree of heterogeneity coupled with differential effects on male and female participants could explain why other studies hadn't found kind of these mechanistic effects before.
So what are some of the mechanistic effects?
Yeah, so like we've already discussed, stress decreases loss aversion. It does so for both men and women, but it does so to a greater extent in men than in women. Stress also alters probability distortion. So the extent to which I see an unlikely outcome as actually potentially going to happen to me. That's kind of the standard probability distortion. I think I'm likely to win the lottery, so I buy a lottery ticket, even though realistically I'm not likely to win the lottery. Stress increases probability distortion in men, but it actually decreased probability distortion in women. Women were more accurate in their judgments of high or low likelihood outcomes. Stress also altered what's called utility curvature. That's basically risk seeking or aversion. So women in the study were more likely to seek out risks. They had less of kind of a tapering of the subjective value of money as the value increased. So usually we would love to win, taking a risk to win $100 when the alternative is zero is a lot more appealing than taking a risk to win $200 when the alternative is 100, right? If I can have $100 in my pocket for sure, I might not take a 50-50 chance to win 200. But if it's zero, yeah, I'll take a 50-50 chance to win 100. So women under stress had less of a difference between the 0 and 100 and 100 and 200.
I want to talk about gambling a bit, because you'd think when someone's stressed, they'd be less willing to gamble. And then I was thinking, as you were speaking about this story about FedEx, where the owner, I think in the 90s or something, or maybe 80s, was about to go bankrupt. And so he gambled his last company money on blackjack, won, saved FedEx. I think it's a perfect example of someone under stress going to gamble when you think they wouldn't. I actually don't like this story. I think it sets a bad example for how we should conduct ourselves. But yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive, isn't it? That the more stressed we are, the more likely we are to take these risks that may have bad outcomes for us.
Yeah, an interesting kind of conjunction of results that I found. In a prior study, I actually found that when people are stressed out, they are better able to kind of determine what the objectively correct decision is when there is an objectively correct decision. Say when pieces of information, indicate that this is the ideal, value for a radio or something like that. So there's something else going on. It's not just that when people are stressed, they don't know what the right decision is. They might be fully aware that, making a risky decision is probably not the best idea, but they do it anyways, maybe because they're less loss averse, or maybe because, there's a change to utility curvatures or things like that. Yeah, so I really want to follow up on that conjunction of results later. I couldn't tell you why the FedEx CEO gambled the last company money, but I could tell you that the literature supports that he would.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is there any evolutionary expectations? I'm thinking about our distant ancestors, before we were people. Essentially the view of some, greater ape that it's better to risk it all than be eaten. Could that be an explanation for why we behave this way?
Yeah, it certainly could. It's very likely the case that, in evolutionary past, when we were in situations that would stress us out, if we didn't do something major, we would have ended up getting injured or some kind of infection or even worse, death. So yeah, maybe making decisions that appear unwise, appear to be a bit too risky when we're stressed is actually something that historically has been quite useful.
Is there any check we can take based on your research? When I say check, I mean I'm faced with a risky decision. I am stressed right now. Should I be remembering anything from your research to help me get me through it?
That's it's a good question. I would say just being aware of that and maybe taking a day, waking up the next day, maybe being a bit less stressed before you make a decision is a good idea.
I mean, I love that through all your academic research, your advice is sleep on it, which is actually excellent advice. So thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
Grant, I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dr. Grant Shields is a psychological science and neuroscience researcher at the University of Arkansas. What can DNA reveal about animal intelligence, our own human language, and even resurrecting extinct species? After the break, we'll unpack a bold project to map every species' genome. Or is it species genome? Species is? Species? Regardless, you'll learn about why this project could change everything from conservation to our understanding of ourselves in a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The only talk show with an introduction that mentions its own introduction. And that's happening right now in this introduction. The last show with David Cooper.
for a mention. Yeah, you just want attention.
Scientists are on a bold mission to map the genomes of every animal, every plant, and every fungus in the United States to put together a genetic blueprint of life itself. This massive project could unlock deep secrets, not just about every animal, but about us, giving insights into language, intelligence, evolution, and extinction. I'm here with someone who's working on that. He's the head of the Laboratory of Neurogenetics of Language at Rockefeller University. His name is Dr. Erich Jarvis. Erich, welcome in.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Why is sequencing the genome of every plant, animal, fungus in the U.S. such a priority right now? Like, what are we trying to learn by having these blueprints for every living thing?
Well, when you have a blueprint of the DNA for a few species, we found it's been powerful information to develop drugs that help treat diseases or understand the biology of interesting traits like we do for neurobiology of language. But imagine now, it's not just a few species, but it's an entire ecosystem, like all the species in the United States, for example. That will be a powerful data set that will allow you to discover genetic differences that are associated with many different specialized traits that we can learn from.
And your own research connects genetics to language, which I'm so curious about. How do we connect reading an animal's DNA to the origins of how we speak and communicate as humans?
Well, our ability to speak, as we're doing now, is encoded in our DNA. The actual words we learn is not, but the ability to imitate sounds and pass on information in those sounds from one generation to another culturally is encoded in the DNA. And there are a few but rare groups of species that have this ability, like songbirds, parrots, hummingbirds amongst birds, and mammals. We have the dolphins and the whales and the pinnipeds. Those are like seals and so on, and bats. And so we have been trying to sequence the genomes, get the genetic code of the various species that imitate sounds and those that don't, and figure out, is there a common theme in their genomes that tell us or give us clues into how the brain circuits are set up for this trait. So that's just one example of what you can do when you have sequenced genomes of many species.
What are some other examples? This is fascinating to me.
Other examples is that you have certain species that are more resistant to cancer than not. And actually that it's been found that a gene called P53 is linked to increased resistance to cancer in certain species like elephants. In other species, you have the ability to have great visual learning. Pigeons can learn up to like 500 different painting styles, or let's say, sort out Picasso from a Monet. And so they have incredible visual memory. And so these are the things that we could study in having all these species.
It's really wild. What are some of the weirdest or unexpected challenges you face when trying to collect all these samples, DNA from such a wide range of species? I feel like tarantulas and maybe cats can't be equally cooperative, can they?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest challenges we face is actually getting good quality blood or other kind of samples to sequence the genomes. And some of these species, they are protected because they're on the verge of extinction. And we'd like to sequence their genome as fast as possible before they go extinct, so we actually have a digital code in case one day we want to bring that species back to life. And to get all the permits and so forth to actually collect these samples of endangered species is quite difficult, slowing down the process.
Wait. De-extinction? This is sounding a lot like Jurassic Park. Are you saying that if we have a catalog of every animal's DNA at some future point when we have the technology, we could revive it?
Yeah, so a big motivation of lots of people in this global initiative has to do with species conservation. We now know that we are in the midst of a mass extinction of species that's caused by humans, human activities, and human population growth. And many of us, myself included, want to save their DNA before they go extinct, when it's become very difficult to actually get their DNA sequence. And so we actually created a database for this project we call the Genome Ark. And no pun intended, to be an ark that stores the DNA of lots of species, and particularly those that are critically endangered of becoming extinct.
This project is massive. We're talking more than just 50 or 60 species here. 600,000 was the number that I saw.
No, yeah, you might have been reading 66,000 original vertebrates when we started the Vertebrate Genomes Project. We now know, when we actually count the number of named species, it's over 70,000 vertebrate species, and it's over 1.8 million named eukaryotic species, all species with a membrane that surrounds their DNA.
Wow.
What you mentioned in the beginning, like birds, mammals, fungi, and so forth.
How do you start organizing something that huge? You must prioritize some things. Do you have a bucket list or things that you'd like to get knocked out first?
Yeah, so I got into this starting out with vertebrates, and I became chair of what's called the Vertebrate Genomes Project, and also got funds from Rockefeller University and Howard Hughes Medical Institute to set up a vertebrate genome lab here at Rockefeller University for this project that sequences these genomes. But this is a global initiative. The chair of the broader project we call the Earth Biogenome Project is led by Harris Lewin, and we have a council. We have people who deal with justice equity issues, people who deal with samples, and so forth. It's a global initiative, and when we have our annual meetings, upwards of 3,000 people are involved.
The science fiction elements here, we already mentioned the possibility of de-extinction. Could all these genomes help us solve puzzles about like deep animal intelligence, like show that some species might have the potential to be smarter than us? I'm looking at you, dolphins.
Yep, exactly. And it turns out, actually, the vocal learning species that my lab studies turns out to be the smarter ones on average, above the average, I mean. And that includes dolphins. And so, yes, we will be able to do what we call comparative genomic analysis to compare the genomes of dolphins, humans, other species, and get a clue at what makes some more intelligent than others. And then maybe even one day genetically manipulate those genes to, let's say, make one more smarter than others.
Sounding like Jurassic Park even more now.
Yes.
Are there any other mind-blowing things that we might discover once we've sequenced every single species in the U.S. or even on Earth?
Well, let me answer that question with one I didn't answer earlier. It says, what projects we're doing now? And we're coming to a closure of some of the first phases of these projects, where we're sequencing groups of species that represent different phylogenetic scales. We call them orders and families and genera of species. And we're making sure that we have enough to cover the family tree of vertebrates. So one of the things we're going to do is make sure we got the family tree correct of different species. Another thing we're going to do is try to figure out what is the boundaries between what is really a species and what is not, when you have two individuals that can hybridize. And to go bigger, what I do hope for one day is that we're going to have enough genetic information across all these species and their specialized traits to develop therapeutics that would be useful for curing human diseases and non-human diseases in other animals and plants and so forth.
Well, it's an amazing project. Thanks for talking to me about it. I appreciate you coming on the show, Erich.
You're welcome, and thank you for your interest.
Dr. Erich Jarvis is the head of the Laboratory of Neurogenetics of Language at Rockefeller University. That's a wrap on tonight's show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Tomorrow night, I'll be doing the show on vacation at my brother's house in Toronto. I don't know why I needed to tell you that, but I did. Here's what I would like to tell you, though. The last show is available in its entirety as a podcast. That's right. You can stream the program whenever you like. Just head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza, not .com. And there, you'll find details about the podcast. That's me, David Cooper, signing off for what's definitely not the first show.
I'm Jordan Bonaparte, and this is your invitation to join me for an exploration of Canadian crime, mysteries, and the just plain weird on the Nighttime Podcast. Over the years, we've dove deep into many of Canada's most unique cases. From the haunting disappearance of Jack and Lily Sullivan in Nova Scotia,
that's something I have to live with until truth makes its way out, and the truth always makes its way out.
To the bizarre mystery of the unexplained death at a Halifax Walmart.
Walmart says a large bakery oven will be removed.
And of course, we provide a weekly roundup of Canada's weird news stories.
The psychic said he could make the woman fall madly in love with him.
The girl loves you more. It's like that.
If you give $12,000.
Yeah.
Through interviews with those closest to the case, to deep dive investigations and listener voices, we shine a light where few others take the time to look. So if you're interested in Canadian crime, mysteries, and the weird, get caught up on everything you missed by subscribing to Nighttime right now, wherever you get podcasts.